Hi, in the series of Racism 101, I wanted to talk here about what racism steals from white people. So I want to talk about this subject that is understandably avoided when it comes to racism. What did racism or slavery do to white people? It is avoided because white people are often the perpetrators of racism and they benefit from it, and to make them the center of the conversation feels strange and unfair. But I think by engaging with this question, we can dig deeper into what is being lost for all of us. I'm not black and I'm not white. I have been discriminated against, and I'm very close to people who have acted racist and hurt other people. I may have done so myself without noticing. So I'm on the sidelines and I'm also in the middle of it. I want to talk about what happened to white people during slavery. They were a group of white people willing to benefit from slavery on a large scale. It wasn't an economic benefit, it was free labor. So they had this huge operation to move people from one continent to another to work on the fields without pay. They knew that they would have to force them, that they would have to be cruel to them to achieve this. So they created a myth of racial difference to appease their guilty conscience. That's the cognitive dissonance that we talked about. They wanted to see themselves as good Christians, but at the same time they were doing these things. So they had to blame the victim to be able to continue doing this and still feel good about themselves. And they had done this before to the Irish, for example, so they knew the playbook. That is also where the quote from Thomas Jefferson comes in handy, where he says, "I tremble for my country when I reflect that God is just, and this justice cannot sleep forever." It shows us that they always knew, and it was a farce and a lie. So what did they do? They created characteristics for different people, to different groups of people. So we all know them, and I go into more detail in my video about Racism 101. How? So what does that do to white people then? The funny thing about racism is that it is a mirror. White sailors and soldiers who went to collect black people, the farmers and landowners who bought them and kept them enslaved on their plantations, these people were the rapists. The people who were torturing other people, they had no control over their anger, over their passion, sexual or violent. They had no sympathy, no human emotion for the pain that they caused. And everyone who watched and did nothing to help falls into the same category. Dehumanizing others dehumanizes you. They called black men rapists decennia after being freed. They were hanged from trees for so much as looking at a white woman. Why? Where did that anger come from? Where did that fear come from? They thought, now that the black people are free, they will do with us what we did to them. And what did they do? They raped their women, they tortured, and they killed a man, and they put them to work until their muscles literally separated from their bones. They called them lazy, while they stood at the sidelines and watched them work all day. They called them dirty because they forced them into small quarters to fit them into a ship where they had to live, to die, to defecate, to urinate, to menstruate, and die within 18 inches of each other. White men did that. But they called their victims dirty. They called them barbaric, while they themselves tortured them, hanged them, separated families, and experimented on them. They are afraid of minorities stealing their land, erasing their culture, raping their women, and killing them. Why? Because that's what they did. They can't imagine someone being kind and forgiving. I'm talking about racists. I'm not talking about all white people. This is supposed to be painful. But what racism does is remove the pain, remove the empathy, remove the cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is when two facts are not adding up together. How can my loving grandfather have been raping the child slave in his free time? She must have seduced him. Cognitive dissonance. When you hear a black man begging for his life, calling for his mama, your heart should be aching. You should be on the fence. You should be storming the White House to demand justice. But many, many white people do not feel the same pain as they would if it was a white man. Why? Because you have been trained not to. You have been socialized not to. Deep down, they deserve it. That's exactly what Fox News does when they come up with a criminal history with something the victim did to bring death upon them. As if the officer read the whole criminal history before he knelt on a man's neck. As if any of that justifies killing someone. It doesn't. So, I want white people to be angry. You should be demanding change. You should be demanding that your children's history lessons include the truth. That it includes black history, slavery, Jim Crow. This is your history. It is not your fault that slavery happened. You didn't enslave anybody. It's not your fault how you were socialized. They kept you ignorant. But you are not a child. You are an adult. And I want you to take responsibility. Educate yourself. This is a great step to start. But then go out and educate others. Make it mandatory for these things to be taught in school and college. If you don't want to repeat the same mistakes again. And we are. If you look at the Mexicans at the border, we are repeating the same mistakes. And when someone is so incredibly brave to point out to you that you said or did something racist, stop. Take a deep breath and don't take it personally. We learned racism isn't personal. You were indoctrinated. We all were. So if someone points out to you an old pattern of racist behavior, ask that person, please explain it to me. And then shut up and listen. You can still disagree with it later, but give them the opportunity to explain it to you. And I want to help you. So if you are looking for those people who inspired me and where I got my education from, look at the description below, because I certainly didn't get it in school. Dr. Joy DeGruy explains very eloquently and engagingly about Black history and its effects till today. She also goes into detail about cognitive dissonance. Dr. Robin DiAngelo explains about white fragility and what white people can do to be better allies. I've also linked the blue eye, brown eye experiment by Jane Elliot, which shows very well how these structures, how quickly people pick them up. And if you're searching for a good book, I would suggest you read Guns, Germs, and Steel by Jared Diamond, who explains how different cultures came to be at different developmental levels. And I have noted only one book because the ladies mention a lot of books in their speeches, and it would be good if you write them up while you're listening, and I really, really do hope you go and you listen to them. So thank you for listening. In the following videos, I will go more into detail about certain things that come up in our discussions, where we are talking about certain things that happen, and then there is a group of people who are like, that is racist. And another group is like, no, why? This has nothing to do with racism. And who's right and why. So the next video I will be talking about statues. And another video I have planned that I will put up, it's about Black Pete, a tradition in the Netherlands. So I hope to see you then. Till then, bye.